Okay. Om Sadashivasamarampham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Okay, we saw the Vijnanavadan Buddhist approach last time. Any questions, clarifications on it? Or everything is fine? 2 weeks back. Okay, yeah. Look at it. The Vijnanavadan approach is Alaya Vijnanam. It's another word used is Alaya Vijnanam. The flow of flickers of consciousness creates an illusion of the I. This is the basic idea of the Atma. They don't say Buddhi is Atma. They don't say that. But when we look at the whole, what they are presenting, we say what you are presenting is that Buddhi is the Atma. You are mistaking that each thought, when you are talking about Alaya Vijnanam, flow of consciousness, flickers of consciousness, you are talking about manifested consciousness. Consciousness that is manifest in the mind. And therefore, thought by thought, it appears as a flicker. One thought gone, one thought gone. Okay. And that cannot be the Atma, because if you can have an illusion of permanence when you look at the flow, but if flickers of the Atma were the Atma, flickers of consciousness were the Atma, you would not have memory. Because how will memory be passed on? If each flicker is only momentary and that is the I, how will you have memory? Because when the second flicker is there, first flicker is not there. So the first flicker, how will it pass on the memory to the second? And how will the second pass on the memory to the third? For an observer, you will get an illusion of continuity. But if I am the flicker, how will I get memory? Are you understanding this argument? If not clear, puch lo. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and people will be confused. Yeah. Okay. Maybe at the end of all this, I should ask some questions. Yeah. Okay. So.
Swamiji, I have a question.
Yeah.
So then they say this no mind meditation and all that. So there then how they will explain that?
Because we have not done all of Buddhism yet. अभी बाकी है थोड़ा. उधर आ जाएगा. Okay. Okay. So this is knocked out by the Mimamsaka views. Okay. By the Mimamsaka views. Okay. In Mimamsaka, there are two main schools, very similar in everything, called the Prabhakaras and the Bhattas. Okay. So let us examine them. Okay. He says, Prabhakarah starkikaihi stu anyontratma anandamaya ityadi shrutehe buddhyadinam ajnane laya darshanad aham ajnaha aham ajnani ityadi anubhavacha ajnanam atmeiti vadataha. The Prabhakarah saying, okay. What is that? Ajnanam atmeiti vadataha. Tarkikas also follow it. Some schools of Tarka also accept that. What is that? How is he? He says, Anyontara Atma Anandamaya. Shruti. Taittiriya Upanishad again. There is another Atma which is called Anandamaya. ityadi shrutehe. So the Shruti, then what is your Anubhava? Buddhyadinam, Buddhi, etc. Your Alaya Vijnanam, Buddhyadi. Ajnane Laya Darshanad. Ajnane Laya Darshanad meaning Supto Laya Darshanad. In deep sleep, in Sushupti, you don't see any Alaya Vijnana, you don't see the mind, the Buddhi is not seen. Mind has gone into Laya. Therefore, Ajnane, and where will go into Laya? In ignorance. Therefore, Laya Darshanad. And Anubhava also, and statement that you make, Aham Ajnaha, Aham Ajnani, Ityadi Anubhava cha. Two Anubhavas. Laya Darshanam in deep sleep, and in waking you saying, Aham Ajnaha, I don't know this. I'm an ignorant man. I don't know how to remove the screen background. Aham Ajnaha. अनुभव है क्या नहीं है? सबको है. Therefore, अज्ञानम आत्मेति वदतः. So what is he doing basically? He has knocked out that alaya vijnanam. That buddhi is atma is knocked out. Why? Because buddhi is having its resolution in your ignorance and deep sleep, and it is coming out. Waking also you have the anubhava, I don't know. And Shruti Vakya is there, Anyantaratma Anandamaya. That Anandamaya is not the Atma, Anandamaya is the Kosha. Therefore, complete, he is knocked out Vijnanavadin, straight. Vijnanavadin is knocked out. Unless the Vijnanavadin is willing to accept that between the flows of consciousness, what is there is ignorance. Then he'll have to come to the Prabhakara who says, Aham Ajnaha, Ajnanam is the basis. Which the Vijnanavadin doesn't want to accept it. Are you getting this logic? Okay, all right. Now the problem with this is, if aham ajnaha, then it will justify all the school and college students' behavior. Basically, ignorant superimpose knowledge by mugging up. No real knowledge will take place because you are not negating ignorance, you are only superimposing some information. Getting it, no? Yeah. Only superimposition of some information will happen, there will be no knowledge. Then pramana will be questioned. Why? What is the definition of pramanam? What is the definition, pramanam?
Small definition is pramakaranam pramanam.
Okay. What if you have to add a couple of adjectives?
Yeah. Anadikatam, abhaditam, jnanajanakam, pramakaranam pramanam.
Beautiful. Anadita, abhadita, jnanajanakam, pramanam. Yeah. So that will go off. Yeah. Because you are superimposing information on knowledge, on ajnana. That's not true. Okay, all right. Why is it not true? Because once a piece of ignorance is gone, what is there in my pocket, you don't know. And as usual, I pull out the pen from my pocket. Now you know. Now, can the ignorance that this pen was in my pocket go away, come back into your mind? This ignorance that the pen was in my pocket or is in my... Can it come back? The ignorance of that?
No, sorry.
Not come back, exactly. Therefore, that ignorance is gone. Therefore, there is something constant. Watching ignorance also come and go. Go, not come. Watching the ignorance that is there and it going. Okay. So, this job is also done by the Bhattas. Bhattas are the followers of Kumarila Bhatta. Okay. Okay. Two great teachers in the Mimamsa tradition, slight difference in their approach to the Atma. As far as their approach to the Veda, the first section of the Veda, the ritualistic portion, it is very similar. Going to heaven, this, that, all that, karma phalam, Ishvara, deity, invocation, all that is same. All that is same. Minor differences here and there like this. Okay. Bhattah tu pragyana ganaha evam anandamayaha ityadi shrutehe sushuptau prakasha aprakasha sadbhavan aham na janami ityadi anubhavacha ajnana upihitam chaitanyam atmeti vadati. Ajnana upahitam chaitanyam atma iti vadati comes close. Consciousness manifest in ajnanam is the Atma. How do you say that? Your pramana is there. Mandukya Upanishad. Pragyana ganaha anandamayaha. He has made that statement. Pragyana ganaha. Nothing but consciousness. Evam anandamayaha, describing deep sleep. It's also anandamayaha. Ityadi shrutehe, because of the shruti. Sushuptau, in deep sleep. Prakasha aprakasha sadbhavat. There is both prakasham and aprakasham. Why? You are aware you don't know anything. Therefore, prakasham, knowledge is there. At the same time, aprakasham is there because you don't know. Aham na janami, I don't know myself. Ityadi anubhavacha. These are your experience. Who are you? Bulla na jane me kaun hu. Yeah. You will say that, I don't know who I am. Yeah. When the analysis goes on, unless you have the pramana of the Shastra, you will be forced to come to that conclusion that I don't know who I am. Therefore, he says, there is consciousness and ajnanam, both together makes the Atma. In other words, Karta Bhokta is the Atma. Because consciousness manifests in the ignorance is what? Karta Bhokta only. No? Because the sense of the I is constant. It may be a changing I, but it is constant. This will explain continuity of memory, all that it can explain, which the Vijnanavadin couldn't explain. Any questions or clear? Soch lo.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
that in the Susupti, it is also Anandamaya. That is also...
Correct, it is Anandamaya. Correct.
So that is the nature of Atman then.
Correct. But do you know you are asleep? On getting up, how do you say? Because you know. Therefore, Prakasham, Aprakasham, both is there. Yeah. Prakasham, Aprakasham, both is there. Okay. But here, the Shunyavadi comes into contention. The second part of Bauddha. Okay? The second part. Apara Bauddha asadeva idam agram asit ityadi shrutehe sushuptau sarva abhavad aham sushupto nasam iti uttitasya स्वभाव परमर्श विषय अनुभवाच शून्यमात्मेति वदति. Okay. Now he is quoting a Shruti out of context. The Chandogya says Asadeva idamagram asit. Before all this, nothing was there. 9 times he has repeated Sadaiva Saumya idamagram asit. Once he has said Asadeva idamagram asit, implying that all this that you are seeing was not there. That's the meaning there. But the Shunyavadi takes it literally. Not that the Shunyavadi is bothered about the Shastra. The Shunyavadi is not bothered about the Shastra. But because we take quote Shastra as a pramana, he is trying to throw it back to us. Therefore he is saying, Asadeva idamagram asit ityadi shrutehi sushupto sarva avbhavad. In Sushupti, you have no experience of anything. Aham sushupto nasam iti uttityasya swabhava paramarsha vishya anubhavacha. Now this is where he is making an misinterpretation. He is saying when you get up, you say in sleep I was not there. I did not know anything. That I did not know anything he is taking as your personality. Was it there in sleep? Were you conscious of your personality in your deep sleep?
No.
Were you conscious that you are a musician?
No.
If the musician is snoring away in deep sleep, you make a recording of the snoring and show him, this is how you sound in deep sleep, he will refuse to accept it. All this apaswaram, without raga, without tala, without this is not me. You are dead to your knowledge, you are dead to everything. Therefore that he takes as, I was not there. I was not there. He interprets it like that. We say the personality was not there. He says, I, the Atma itself was not there. Iti paramarsha, because you remember like that, he says, paramarsha anubhavat shunyamatmeti vadati. Atmaha shunyaha. This is the classical Buddhist. Shunyavadin. Okay. But you can ask the Buddhist, who is the one who remembered? If you have to remember, I was not there, somebody must have been there. Shunya is nothingness, so it cannot remember. Shunya is nothingness. How can Shunya remember anything? Plus, this is a development of thought from the Kshanika Vijnanavadin. The first school of Buddhism said the flow of consciousness, flickers of consciousness, creates an illusion of I. So the Shunyavadin comes in between two flickers, what is there? Nothing is there. Therefore, alata shanti, stop the flow. No mind, no consciousness, shunya meditations. This is called shunya meditation. You have it in yoga also. People like Sadhguru also promote it, shunya meditation. I'm afraid I am forced to mention people because I don't want all of you to misunderstand things. The practice of shunya meditation has some use. But the shunya is the shunya of your thoughts. It is not you being shunya. Nobody can say shunyoham. Why? I am there now. I am there very much. How can I say I am not there? It is like saying I don't have a tongue. Like saying I don't have a tongue. The very act of saying implies that you have a tongue. Similarly, how can you say I am non-existent? because you'll always experience yourself as existing. That is why you ask any Buddhist master, the greatest of them. I have met some real great masters in Buddhism. And I always have this approach, because Buddhists are very respectful people, they will respect whoever comes very, very this thing. If you go and meet a traditional master, so always bow down to the traditional masters. And I will always say this, unto Buddha my salutations. Unto the Buddha my salutations. I always say this. He will also bow down twice. And he will say, no, 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 I am not the Buddha. I am only a Bodhisattva. Now, why this comes up? Who is a Bodhisattva? Now, that also you have to look at the story in Buddhism, the narrative in Buddhism. Bodhisattva is an evolving Buddha. Through many lifetimes, he is evolving. See, Buddhists always believe that it takes a lot of lifetimes to reach moksha. And they also believe that moksha will be gained in a male body, okay? Don't blame me, I am just talking what the Buddhist is talking. So, an evolving Buddha, because to be a Buddha, you have to experience yourself as I am not there, Shunya. How will you ever experience that? Can you experience that in this lifetime? Because you are there. I can negate the whole universe, whole world, the multiverse I can negate. I will remain as a negator. I can go into a trance-like state. This is what many people think is realization. You have to be sitting on some peak somewhere. Like we used to joke, feel the Himalayan peak under your butt and then you will get realization. I will never experience Aham Shunyaha. So this lifetime they cannot. So I am the Bodhisattva only. Next lifetime. But next lifetime is the same game business. I am there now. Therefore, never can you experience Aham Shunyaha. You can experience the absence of everything else. You can experience the absence of your personality. You can even knock off your self-awareness in Samadhi state. That's called Shunya Samadhi. But when you get up, you will come up as you are. With all your personality. But that changed me. Experiences can change you. Experience changes you means what? Your personality. No? So many experiences in life, you are a product of many of your experiences anyway, if not all. So this experience also changed you a bit. Okay, take care. Good deal, good business. Experiences can change. Experience need not change. You can get wrong learning also from experiences. Three relationship didn't work out, all men are dogs. Unfortunate conclusion. If you say many men are dogs, I'll accept it. So, just because there is Samadhi experience, still the experience is not I am Shunya because you come up now. So, Shunyatam can never be really your Atma Swarupa. Now, we call this the Buddhism. We have to also look at it historically and understand one thing. Buddha never said, I am starting a new religion. This is important to understand. That is why Jayadeva puts Buddha as one of the avatars. Why? Buddha was a great teacher in our tradition. There were so many teachers in our tradition. Now I am saying in tradition, I am looking at it more globally, not only at the Dasanama Sannyasa tradition. The Shankariya tradition that we all follow is the Dasanami Sannyasa tradition. But there are other traditions. Dasapanthis, Kabir Panthis, okay? Natha Sampradaya. Natha Sampradaya is heavily into yoga. The Tantrika Sampradayas, the Aghori Sampradaya. There are all great traditions in India. All parts of what we know as Hindutva. All these are part of it. Okay? Sanatana Dharma. Yeah, Sunita.
So Swamiji, what did Buddha say about
Yeah.
Shunyavadi?
I'll come to that. I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So, Buddha was a great teacher. And you remember the historical background of Buddha's life. What he went through, the torture he went through in his life. And Buddha was a person. How did Buddha gain the knowledge himself? Because Buddha's teacher is not mentioned. There is no mention of Buddha's teacher anywhere. But there is one thing mentioned. Buddha would come into the company of sadhus, learn, debate, discuss, etc. Then he would go away, sit down and contemplate on what he has heard. Then if some doubts, etc. is there, he would come back, discuss, debate, listen, go back, contemplate. This was his life for years. At the end of it, under the Bodhi tree, certain things clicked for him. Sometimes I think that Bodhi tree is a myth, like the cross on which Christ was crucified. You know how many families abroad have pieces of that cross? The cross that Christ was crucified, if you look at it, and if you put all the pieces together, you'll be able to build a ship and not a cross. Okay. There are so many pieces available. Anyway, they have that devotion which is good. Whether it doesn't have to be real, the devotion will work it. So that much is good. So similarly, Bodhi tree. Okay. So it all clicked for him under the Bodhi tree. So he laid a lot of emphasis on contemplation, which is good. Contemplation is good for everyone. He'll give you the mind in the beginning to know the truth, later on to own up the truth. So it's a good thing. So for him it all clicked in contemplation. Therefore he emphasized a contemplative lifestyle for his students. And remember, he was a king before he walked out. Just imagine, Narendra Modi has a lot of people who hate him and a lot of people who love him. Both he has. If Narendra Modi becomes a sannyasi and a teacher, what will be his following? What do you think his following will be? He beats Sadhguru hollow in terms of numbers. Why? Yeah. So a king in those days, brought up in the lap of luxury, walked off and became a sadhu. In fact, he already had a student when he was walking off, before he gained the knowledge. That other king in the neighboring kingdom told him, when you find the truth, please come and teach me. So he's already booked as a teacher. So he had a great following. And to all of them, he insisted on a life of contemplation. That is why the Eightfold Path came up from the 6th chapter of the Gita. Yukta Ahara Viharasya Yukta Karmasu Cheshtasu. All that is developed as the Eightfold Path. Buddha never said, I am teaching Buddhism. Buddha never said, I am teaching a separate religion. Buddha never said, this initiation into the Sangha is a separate sannyasa ritual from the Hindu sannyasa ritual. He did not say that. But whenever he was asked about the Atma, he didn't reply. He kept quiet. Now, silence is subject to interpretation. If I ask you a question or somebody asks me a question and I don't reply, what can it be interpreted as? 2-3 main things. Either I don't know, or I am choosing not to say, or the answer doesn't exist. There can be other options also. I am picking up 3 main options, correct? Either I don't know, okay, or I am unwilling to talk about it, or the answer doesn't exist, or I don't want to answer to you, you're an idiot. That option is also there, okay? So, Buddha kept quiet. In my thinking, this is my personal opinion, giving benefit of doubt to Buddha's knowledge. Why benefit of doubt? Because there's reason for it. People like Shankara, etc., have called him Sugataha, Tathagataha. These are not Buddhist names, these are Sanskrit names. Sushtu Gatam Jnanam Yasya, one whose Jnanam, Gataha meaning Jnanam, Sushtuhu, good knowledge. He has great knowledge. Tat Agataha Yena, Tat, the reality. Agatam was understood by whom? Therefore, giving benefit of doubt to his knowledge, saying he knew the truth, I would say he kept quiet because he thought people are not yet ready for that answer. Let them live a good, clean life first, simple life, be contemplative, develop a contemplative mind, then they will understand. From me or somebody else. That's an option a teacher can always take. In fact, olden days teacher would take it. Nobody could walk into a class. You walk into a class, you are put through some seva and things like that. Pehla. Prove your worthiness as a student. Only then we will take you as a student. So, Buddha kept quiet. He didn't talk about the Atma. 500 years after Buddha's time, 1st century AD or something, 500 years after, there was a writer called Nagarjuna. So it was Nagarjuna who first propounded Shunyavada. 500 years after Buddha's death, okay? So by the time of Shankara, Buddhism as Shunyavada, this, that, etc. was set. By the time this book was written, it is all set. That Shunyavada. It's set. Not before that. So it is Nagarjuna who is responsible for Shunyavada. So it's not Buddhism really speaking. It is Nagarjuna's interpretation of Buddha's silence. That's why there is a great debate and this thing, Vijnanavadin and Shunyavadin came up. And Buddhism, as it spread to Tibet and China and everything, okay, the most thing that spread was Shunyavada. But heavily influenced by the tantric schools in Hinduism. Buddhists worship a Tara Devi, green Tara. You must have heard of that. Those who have read something about Buddhism would have heard of that. With my students, I don't have to bother. Most of them don't read anyway. Green Tara is nothing but a version of Smashana Tara that is worshipped in tantric rites. We call it Smashana Tara. The Tara, the jewel of the cremation grounds. Smashana Tara. Worshipped elaborately by tantrics, especially the Aghoris. So, the Buddhism that went to Tibet and China, heavily influenced by Tantra, also influenced by Kashmiri Shaivism, which is also contemplative schools and energy. That's why they have lot of energy working and etc. in them. Because all tantric schools, Kashmiri Shaivism, etc., have a lot of this energy work in it. That's how they got preserved there. Okay. Yeah. And the other influence was Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma's father, Mallavarman or something was there. Yeah. He had a kingdom near Kanchi. And Bodhidharma was the third son, not the eldest. So he didn't have the right over the throne. So in a huff he walked away and joined Buddhism. But all the martial arts was common anyway. So he learned Kalari. Kalari Paitu he learned. Traditional Kalari Paitu he learned. And Buddhism. And went to China. That's why Kung Fu is nothing but a replica of Kalari, including northern and southern schools, etc. When you listen to that lady, you say, oh, there are many schools. Basic two styles, the northern style and the southern style. And we say the northern leg and the southern fist. Why? The north of Kerala, where Kalari Paitu was really developed, the northern part of Kerala is hilly regions. When you're going up and down the hills, your legs are strong. So the northern leg, emphasis on kicks. The southern side is more coastal. People are rowing, boats, etc. Why we all as rowed boats as kids. Flooding, etc. So the southern fist, the hands are strong. So the northern leg and the southern fist. That's how the school traditions came up in India. And China, they follow the same thing. The northern styles are more about kicking. The southern styles are more about punching and strikes. Though kicking is there in the southern style, punching is there in the northern style also. Healing is there in both styles. What that girl said was wrong. Okay? Healing, therapy, etc. is there in both the schools. That girl doesn't know. Okay? So, this is how Buddhism spread. And they adopted, when Bodhidharma went to the Shaolin temple, he found the monks and all are very weak in health. Why they are weak in health? Because all the time they are sitting and translating Sanskrit manuscripts into Chinese. Sanskrit and Pali manuscripts, they are translating into Chinese. Therefore, their health was weak. Now, if a gym trainer, you go to a gym trainer for exercise, what will he give you? Gymming exercises. You go to a yoga teacher for health, what will he give you? Yoga exercises. You go to a martial artist for health, what will he give you? Martial exercises, what he is an expert in. So that's how he taught them the basics. And then it developed into a martial arts and Buddhism got associated. Which is good in a way because certain traditions were preserved and it developed and it spread all over to the Asian countries. That's how all these things developed. Kalari Paitu is the source of it, actually speaking. Yeah. So they used martial arts as a way of training the mind. And then it developed into other things where spirituality also meant ability to read minds, project energy. So the spiritual dimension, it became like that. The ones who follow Shunyavada very strictly are the Zen Buddhists. And I have talked a lot to the Zen Buddhists and they have all agreed that really speaking it is not Shunya. So we coined up a term, non-conceptual reality. Translate Shunya not as nothingness, non-conceptual reality. It is not my term, okay? Nirgunam Brahman. I got it from the Shastra. I got nothing of my own to say. It's all the Shastra. Okay. Nirgunam Brahman. non-conceptual reality. Chalo Baba, take it. But I don't translate Brahman as non-conceptual reality. I will translate Shunya as non-conceptual reality. Brahman I will keep as Brahman, okay? Nirgunam Brahman, Satyajnanam Anantam. That's it. So this is how the Buddhist school came up. And then of course it became socio-political, etc., separate identity. See, human beings have this need to create separate identity. Two strong needs are felt in human beings. One, to have a sense of belonging, and the other, to have a sense of uniqueness. So the sense of belonging, they will create groups. And the sense of uniqueness, you will try to create separate identities for yourself as well as for your group. We are a separate society. You will say, for our society. Other building is separate. Why not the whole road one society? Oh, no. Difficult to manage. Okay, one society. All right. Society is all about equals. Have a working committee and do with it. No. Who's going to be chairman? Who's going to be secretary? Who's going to be the president? Why? Identity. And our thinking is so much of that. Bank account, I had some issues with that. I still have to resolve that. Who's the chairman of your trust? I said, we don't have a chairman. We have all our trustees. No, but we must have a chairman for record. We don't have. I have not put myself as chairman. Creating hierarchies in spiritual thing, there is only one hierarchy. Guru and disciple, that's it. Utna hierarchy, nothing else. It's not an organization, but where will these characters understand that? Yeah, Sunita.
So Swamiji, how do the Shunyavadins explain the negator? I mean, because it seems like an obvious question. How do they explain?
They don't. They'll say that has to be resolved into Shunya, and they'll put Samadhi experiences, and you will be on a trip for a lifetime. You will be on a trip for a lifetime because Buddhist schools are experiential schools.
So therefore, the logic of it they refuse to see.
The logic, as it being existence, they refuse to see.
Okay. Correct.
Yeah.
Understood.
So that is where Buddhism came. Yeah. And if you notice, now Buddhists will always blame Brahminical traditions for negation of driving Buddhism outside the country. It has nothing to do with Brahminical traditions. The Brahmins may be responsible for a lot of problems, but not this one. Not this one. Though it is true, it is Kumarila Bhatta who had a lot of debates and discussions with Buddhists. It just so happened with debates and discussions, they couldn't answer, so it fell in its popularity in India. In India, Buddhism fell in its popularity. Though there was a time when both Jainism and Buddhism influenced a lot of southern kings after Ashoka, and it influenced a lot of southern kings. So there was a time when a lot of southern, that's why that Mahabali statue, etc. came up. Mahavira is also accepted as one of the teachers. Okay, we have no issues on that. In fact, others have a problem with our inclusiveness. Why? Mahavira, great teacher, we'll accept. Buddha, great teacher, we'll accept. No, we want separate identity. Then you blame us for not being inclusive. Yeah. We accept great tradition. Yeah. No problems. As long as you don't step on my toes, I'm okay with that. Please don't do that, that's all. Yeah. So, there were debates and discussions. That was natural. We are an intellectual society. We are a society of seekers and visionaries. Therefore, debates and discussions are natural with intellectuals. So, if you have a public debate and then you can't answer some of the questions, naturally that school will fall into, become unpopular. So, because that was how the traditions grew in India. So, because of that, Buddhism did not take off in India. But because of King Ashoka's missionary activities, it spread eastward. It spread eastward and had some influence in those areas. Okay. But, yeah. Now, if you want to put Shankara as a Brahmin and blame him, that's a different thing. Shankara was a person who gave up his Brahminhood when he took sannyasa. A sannyasi doesn't have a caste, okay? He is free from Varnashrama dharmas. Therefore, you can't say Brahminical influence. These are all idiotic. And another big problem historically that happened with Buddhism in India was Dr. Ambedkar's, all the backward, so-called backward classes, SC, OBC, etc., converting them to Buddhists. So the traditional Buddhists do not accept them as valid Buddhists. Now the Hindus, they would have got nicely integrated into the Hindu society by now, if Ambedkar had not done it. If Ambedkar had not done this, by now, except in some pockets in the villages of UP or South, etc., some pockets in rural India, and all other places that have got nicely integrated into the Hindu fold, into the society, without discrimination, etc. But because he made them separate neo-Buddhists, where there is hardly any Buddhism, there is some little bit of Vipassana practice is given, that's all. Nothing else is there. Why? Because I have a lot of neo-Buddhist friends as well. I know a couple of monks. Right? In Ambedkar Garden, we have a Buddhist temple. There's a better temple in Varli Naka, which is a Japanese Buddhist temple. And you'll find huge difference when you talk to both of them. मेरे को और कुछ काम धंधा नहीं है, साधु है ना, ये सब करता है. As a teacher, I'm supposed to do these things, Talk, see how the things differ, agree, what. So this is how Buddhism grew. And as a system, when I'm looking at another flaw is overemphasis on ahimsa. This is classically seen in Tibet. In 1950s, Chinese army walked in and took over Tibet. They could do nothing to prevent it. 100 years before that, China had attacked Tibet and the Tibetans threw them out. 150 years before that. Tibetans threw them out, they were warriors. Why? Because those days battles were fought by old-fashioned weapons, bows, arrows, spears, swords. Which Buddhist martial arts hai. An army of 200 martial artists is enough to take a few thousand ordinary soldiers with those weapons. But then they followed ahimsa. And in time, they did not develop that martial skills into the modern world. China did, and it just could walk over. There was Tibetan monks who even at that time told the Dalai Lama, we should not run away from this place, we should stay and fight, create a guerrilla movement. Then there would have been some hope of Tibet being independent. Finally, the Dalai Lama has admitted 2 years back, for 50 years we have been praying, nothing has happened. Correct? Where action is necessary, action is necessary. So that overemphasis on ahimsa is a problem. We also emphasize ahimsa. Ahimsa paramo dharma. But dharmo himsa stataivacha. For the sake of dharma, himsa also should be considered as paramo dharma. That's the difference. That's the difference. That's why the problem and the breakup of the country happened after Ashoka. Before that, there was some deterioration. After the Mahabharata war, India had some deterioration. Why? Because all those Vajramushti traditions were not available anymore. But still, it had developed into other forms. But with Ashoka, he was a great emperor. He was a great emperor. He disbanded the army. And in his lifetime itself, the empire disintegrated. Why? Every small king asserted himself, you are the emperor, you don't have an army, I am the king here. Because he was a conquered king. And Ashoka in his peacefulness said, okay, fragmentation of the country happened. There was always an idea of one India. They do not fall for the British education which says India was a British concept. Idiotic. Bharatavarsha was always there. It's mentioned in the Veda. As a political entity. But the center kept changing. Whoever was the Chakravarti, whoever was accepted as a Chakravarti, that center kept changing. So it was federal. It was federal in its outlook. There was unity, federal in its outlook. Because the center was so federal that the center also kept changing. So Ashoka was the Chakravarti. And other kings asserted their independence. Because they could afford to do so. Country got fragmented. So when the Alexander etc. walked in, it was very difficult. Why? Each king was fighting on his own, not united, which would have been there before. Even then he came up against the Maurya Empire. Then the Islamic invasions. Disintegration happened, that is where the whole problem came up from. Let us look at it historically, not the nonsense that has been fed to us in schools. 200 years of Mughal rule is considered the greatest in Indian history. What about 700 years of the Pandyan kings, Chola empires, Ahom, 600 years, Assam, Ahom, 600 years. What about all of them? Chalukyas, another 1500 years. What happened to all that history? Gone. If I say that, people say you are changing the narrative. Idiot, you have been fed with a false narrative. You are not changing narratives. You are bringing out the true narrative that is there, which is forgotten, glossed over, hidden, so that you will not have pride in your own culture and heritage. And idiots tell me that we are changing narratives. We are not changing narrative. This is the narrative of the country. Label Mahabharata and Ramayana as myths. They are itihasas, history. No, they are myths. That's called cutting off from your own heritage and culture. So that Indians will not be proud of their own country. So what will happen? We will go and build up Microsoft. Hey, at the individual level, I respect everyone's achievement who has gone abroad and made themselves grow. Okay. Yeah. But remember what is happening. In what way all those who are abroad, in what way you can contribute back to India. I'm telling you, I even respect the worker who goes to Dubai and Abu Dhabi and works. Why? He's sending money back to India and helping Indian economy to grow. So what are you doing? Yeah. To all my students abroad, this is important to think about it. That is historical, not Vedanta, okay? Okay, yeah. But you can't really in today's world separate out both the perspectives. Okay? Completely you can't compartmentalize. Because we took off from the Shunyavada. So the Shunyavada has its limitations, that's why you will become only both the sattvas, you will not become the Buddha. Evolving. One thing I respect of the Buddhist tradition is their commitment. They are not slack in how they do things. We are. We have to learn some things. We are very slack when it comes to things. Yeah. Not the Buddhists, okay. Now, those of you who were sitting in the Adhyasa Bhashya with me,
Swamiji, I have one question.
shoot.
Yeah, which is actually I'm a little unclear between the Prabhakaras and the Bhattas. I'm not very
The
clear
difference
about
is
the difference.
difference is very minimalistic, because the Prabhakara says Ajnanam eva Atma. Okay, and the Bhatta says it is a mixture of Ajnanam and consciousness. Both together is the Atma.
Sorry, Ajnanam and?
Consciousness.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. Both is together.
But that consciousness is not Atma, no?
No. The mixture is the Atma for them.
Okay. So then, according to them, the Atma has ignorance.
Yeah, Atma has ignorance.
Okay. Clear.
Ignorance and consciousness both are the nature of the Atma, which we refute by saying, how can one entity have opposing qualities? Because one will subvert the other. One will subvert the other. See, all these problems comes up because you are making it experiential. Because even the same thing is coming up in modern science today. Even science has to be taken into the account of us. And especially today's world, because in science there is a lot of study on consciousness happening. The latest in science is biocentrism. See, previously, even 30, 40 years back, the general opinion was that physics had the answer to the riddle of the universe. The physical universe was studied by physics. Physics was the champion. Therefore, if you are a theoretical physicist, you are considered someone real up there. Okay. But then, when you are going only by that, they have discovered, especially with quantum physics coming up, that what about the question of consciousness? Consciousness cannot be studied only through physics. Because they have found in physics experiments, the study of particles at quantum level, microscopic levels, that the consciousness of the observers is influencing the event. So then the latest school in science to come up is biocentrism. To have biology at the center, because consciousness is studied by biology more. Consciousness means it's a living entity, not dead matter. But the problem in both the approaches is, you can only study the consciousness manifest here. So they end up studying the brain most of the time, or what is happening in the brain. So the study of consciousness at the most will become the study of manifested consciousness. Why? Because even though we may not look at science as an experiential school, in a way it is. They remove the subjectivity of the experience, but they are still measuring it in terms of your perception, measurements, etc., etc., etc. Therefore, that is all experiential. But the subjective element of the experience they try to remove. Because in normal human experience, the subjective element comes out. So the first thing science does is create the subject, widen the subject-object divide. Whereas Vedanta approaches, there is no subject-object divide at the absolute level. But if you have to observe, we cannot go to the absolute level. Subject-object divide has to be there. If you are trying to objectify consciousness and study it, the maximum you will be able to study is what consciousness is manifest. That's why I always insist, and my guru also used to do the same thing, that Vedanta is not scientific. Don't make a mistake of putting Vedanta as scientific. And many Vedantins also make the same mistake. Like I was in a conference where I mentioned that Vedanta is not scientific. And the people who organized that conference, there is one Nagaswami. He is part of the Advaita Academy, Harikiran. Harikiran is a good man. He spent a lot of money in setting up the Advaita Academy. But this Nagaswami, he didn't like that because it goes against all that he holds as true. But he knows he cannot directly debate with me. So he got a chief guest at the validation function, at the closing function, and he gave him a brief to speak for 45 minutes on how Vedanta is scientific. And I sat down and listened. Why? My job is not to refute him. After that, he and 2-3 others came and said, what do you think of this piece? I said, you should have given me 3 minutes to speak. I would have refuted all his arguments because his arguments are really only 3. So 3 arguments, 3 minutes enough. After that, he has not called me for any conference. He's scared. That's why if you look at all these academic setups, they don't call traditional Vedantins. That's why I'm advising some of my juniors to do your doctorate. Chalo, get into academics and start refuting some of these idiocy that is happening there. Yeah. So, when it comes to this, the scientific approach also has its own limitations because you will study only manifested consciousness. That is why science is very happy with Buddhism. Because what many of the Buddhists say in Kshanika Vijnanavada, Shunyavada, etc. is fitting with them. Why? Because they are studying manifested consciousness. And when you say Kshanika Vijnanavada, etc. is manifested consciousness. So the ideas are gelling. That's why you'll find Buddhism has a huge appeal in the Western world. Plus, of course, they have been smart in establishing chairs for Buddhism, etc., which we haven't been doing. People like Narayana Murthy, he contributed a few $1 million. He could have established a chair for Hinduism in his own university. No? He didn't do that. Why? People like us, they're my same generation, neutralized Hindus. Kya bole wo? Thank God, God's grace brought Swamiji to me. Yeah. Or rather, took me to Swamiji. Yeah. How will you get neutralized like that? Yeah. Anyway, that is, is not something to get disturbed about, it's something to recognize. This is what we recognize. ये तो कली की प्रभाव है, होता है ऐसा. And not to be getting upset about. Recognize what is what. Not to get hatred against somebody. No. Recognize. This is it. And if you can do something about it, do something about it. Yeah. Anyway. So, yeah, Kavita.
Swamiji, I just wanted to know that in Kshanika Vijnanavada, they expect constant...
Sorry. Your words are dragging. I'm not hearing you properly.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Yes?
So in Kshanika Vijnanavada,
Yeah.
they take I as constant, or they with changing thoughts, they realize that if they are taking it as speed of thoughts, then thoughts are also changing, and therefore I also will change. What is it like? How do
In Kshanika Vijnanavadin, there is no I. I is an illusion. Because I is an illusion created by the flow of thought. Remember the example that was used? You take a sparkler and keep weighing it around. You create figures. There is no real figure. The movement creates that illusion of I. The flow of thoughts create an illusion of a permanent I. This is Kshanika Vijnanavada. Therefore, I is an illusion. Therefore, Shunyavadin becomes the next logical step. If I is an illusion, then you should be nothing. Or you should be something. We say your personality is illusory. We say your personality is mithya. We don't say you are Mithya. You are Satyam. See, if the personality is created by the flow of thoughts, then you will have to say what is between the flow of thoughts. Either you can go nothingness, as the Buddhists went, or because they didn't have a pramana, they are not referring to the pramana, or if you refer to the pramana, you will say nothing but consciousness, because you can't dismiss yourself. So you can go both ways. Buddhism went into nothingness. Why? Because by that time, by the time Nagarjuna wrote about Buddhism, he had already tried to establish it as separate from Vedanta, separate from the Vedas. Therefore, he couldn't accept the Vedas. In fact, Kumarila Bhatta, the Bhatta school, we would debate with the Buddhists, and he found that some arguments he was finding it difficult to refute very clearly because he had not studied Buddhism. Therefore, he went to a Buddhist teacher in disguise and studied Buddhism. But they caught him. He said, "This is enemy come to learn our scriptures." So instead of throwing him out of the monastery, they took him on top of the hill. And he said, "Either renounce your Vedic tradition or we'll throw you down the hill." So he said, "If Veda is right, nothing will happen to me." They threw him down. Ahimsa paramo dharma क्या हो गया अभी? They threw him down and he survived. So he became one of the persons who really started negating Buddhism. Yeah. The problem came because he wanted Buddhism separate. That is socio-political in nature. See, there is absolutely no problem of having your own individual identities. Yeah. Like Natha Sampradaya, you could have had both the Sampradaya. What is the problem? Even as individuals, we have Sampradayas. No? Kabir Panthis, very great sadhus they are. Kabir Panthis are very strict sadhus. Initiation as a brahmacharya is difficult. You know that? When you go to study, you will stay in the ashram for a year. They will teach you some of Kabir's works and everything. Then they will give you brahmacharya diksha. Their brahmacharya diksha is almost like our sannyasa diksha. And then the guru will mention a number. 80, 100, 120, whatever, one number. At the end of the day, that is all the money you are supposed to have with you. And you are supposed to leave the ashram and roam all over India. If he has mentioned 80, like one of our students, the teacher mentioned the name 80. This is about 20 years back. Okay? And the teacher mentioned 80. So he could not have more than 80 rupees at the end of the day. If he has more, he is supposed to give it away. Spend it, do something. But he can't keep more than 80 rupees. Can you imagine a life like that? You are a wandering monk. Let us say 20 years back 800, now 80 rupees, now you will keep it as 500 rupees. Roaming around India with 500 bucks in your pocket, not more than 500 bucks. In today's world, it won't buy you a ticket anywhere. But this boy roamed all over. Then he heard about a teacher called Swami Dayanand Ji. Kahan hai? Rishikesh mein. He came to Rishikesh. But Pujya Swamiji was not in Rishikesh. He was in Coimbatore. So, ठीक है, मैं कोयम्बतूर चले जाएगा. So, Shuddhanand Ji said, these people are going to Delhi, they will take you up to Delhi. And in Delhi, they gave him a ticket. He gave him a ticket also to go to Coimbatore. But this guy fell ill on the train. Okay. And when he got off at Hyderabad to have a cup of tea, the train left. He was in a daze, he didn't even notice that. He fell asleep on the bench in Hyderabad station. And some lady found him, an old couple found him, took him home, nurtured him back to health. He said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to Coimbatore." So they gave him a ticket to go to Coimbatore and offered money. He said, "I can't give more than 80 rupees." They came to Coimbatore and joined the course. So you have such a strict sampradaya, Kabir. They don't have a identity apart from the tradition in this country. It's all part of Sanatana Dharma. All part of Sanatana Dharma. Similarly, you could have had Buddha also as part of it. There would have been no issues, no problems. All this Neo-Buddhism and the OBC and all that thing and the criticism, all this nonsense wouldn't have been there. Thank Nagarjuna for it. And another writer called Ashwagosha. Ashwagosha at least tried to correlate some amount of Vedanta and Buddhism. He's tried to correlate both. Okay. I'm just giving you all this in a nutshell because I know none of you are going to pick up all this and read. I know my students well. Barring one or two who may be doing some reading, others I know won't do that reading. So this was the tradition. Now, if you remember the argument in the Adhyasa Bhasha, where he discuss various schools, he says the very fact that all these different schools exist shows what? You remember the statement? Anyone? That there are so many opinions that what the Atma shows, nobody really understands the Atma. There is ignorance about the Atma. The fact that different schools can exist about the Atma and the reality shows there is a lot of ignorance about the Atma. In this class, how many opinions are there whether this is a pen or not? कोई opinion है इधर? Why? Because everyone knows this is a pen. Okay, holding the pen in my hand, what else is there in my pocket? Now you can have opinions. Maybe it's another pen, maybe it's a bunch of keys, maybe it's a wallet, maybe it is this, maybe it is that, maybe it's a handkerchief, maybe it's this, maybe it's some tissue. Why? Because no one knows for sure, no? Different opinions on the same thing shows nobody is sure of the reality. Now, in something there may not be a much great reality. Should the age of marriage for women raise from 18 years to 21 years? There is no reality of that question. It's only a social condition and a social opinion. You can't even say medical speaking what you can do. You can't. After 18, a girl is okay for pregnancy. So you can't have. There's no such opinions apart from such opinions. Why should I like Karela or not like Karela? Those are very subjective. Those opinions are fine, doesn't matter. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about realities. This is a pen or not. If you have opinion, that means there is ignorance. Similarly, what is the nature of the Atma? There are many opinions. What is the nature of God? Many opinions. My God is like this, your God is like that. My God is an unknown true God, your God is a pagan God, whatever. Nobody knows what Ishvara is. Nobody knows what God is. Because if you understood Ishvara, like the way he spent, there will be no arguments. Every notion can be fitted in, no problems. Inclusiveness. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. That's the beauty. Because it's all about invocation then. This is Ishvara, you invoke him as you want. Invoke him as a warrior, invoke him as a peaceful guy, invoke him as a young man, you invoke him as a baby, invoke him as an old man with a long beard, it doesn't matter. That's invocation, Ishtam. Ishta Devata we call it, not an issue. But if you don't know the reality, all the fight starts. Conversions start. I have to convert you to my thinking. Why? Yeah. And then you'll call yourself a liberal. Ye kya? You want to convert me to your thinking and you're saying you're a liberal? How does that fit into the definition? Okay, so different opinions of the Atma itself proves there is ignorance of the Atma. Therefore, now what is the job? Now the job is de-superimposition. Knocking off all the superimpositions and revealing the Atma as it is. The Adhyaropa has been described. General Adhyaropa, some special schools of Adhyaropa. There are many more. Modern schools also exist, which maybe at some time I will deal. Off and on I dealing, touching upon something. If you have anything specific for me to deal, ask me, I will do that. Okay? I spend some time thinking on all these issues. और क्या काम धंधा नहीं है ना? ये काम. Okay? But the de-superimposition, etc. There are a couple of verses left in this chapter where he is making up a nice summation of the whole thing. Yeah. But that is part of the this thing, which we will see next class. Okay, so next class 26, it is Boxing Day, but we are having a class, right? Yeah. Post Christmas, you are not going to be. I mean, I am asking this because in case some of you are traveling or something like that. Okay, going out of town, or why is it called Boxing Day? Because you have enjoyed Christmas so much, now you are punch drunk as a boxer. He's after the bout, you take it easy, Baba. Yeah. I don't know whether there is any other interpretation. I don't know the religious interpretation of Boxing Day, why it's called Boxing Day. If any of you know it, please enlighten me next class, okay?
Swamiji, it's called Boxing Day because you open all your presents.
Unboxing. So unboxing is called shortened to Boxing Day. That's a good example. That's a good explanation. That's quite likely. Instead of calling it Unboxing Day, you just called it Boxing Day. Okay. That's a good explanation. Yep, likelihood. Quite likely, yeah. Yeah, I have to do that, yes. So, good place to stop. Om Tat Sat. Take care.